Welcome to another episode of Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise Retirement Podcast, where certified financial planner Lauren Sherman shares thoughts on having a healthy mind, body, and spirit, an abundance of wealth inside portfolios and out, and lessons learned from clients and mentors over the years.
Everyone has heard the saying, money doesn't buy happiness. Today, we are going to put that idea to the test with a review of a book called Happy Money, The Science of Smarter Spending. Before jumping in, I want to say a quick thank you for joining me if this is your first time listening, and of course, thanks for coming back if you're a long-time listener. If you did not catch my previous episode called Where Are You Still Using Single Ply, today will be an extension of that conversation, so be sure to go back and check that one out if you missed it. But while our previous episode was based on an article from famous entrepreneur and podcaster Tim Ferriss, this one takes a more academic approach, as our authors include a professor of psychology and a professor of Harvard Business School. Before we jump in, you might be thinking, why is a financial advisor talking to us about happiness? Well, my answer is twofold. First, sure, I put this content out there for my clients and other retirees, but also I enjoy recording these for myself, so I'm always looking to cover topics that interest me. And second, what good is it to die with a pile of money if we never found happiness or meaning beyond the dollars and cents? So the second reason we are covering this is that I think it's vitally important to a successful retirement. Most of us were asked as a child what we wanted to be when we grew up and what made us happiest, but some of us have never stopped to think about this as adults. From the perspective of a financial planner, when we can get clear on the purpose of money to use specifically, it makes the actual planning easier and much more meaningful. So as I said, we've all heard the saying, money doesn't buy happiness. In fact, thousands of scientific literature come to the same conclusion. Additional income does little to provide additional happiness. And even to the extent that it does provide us more happiness, it falls far short of our expectations. What this means is that many of us have this image that if we could just earn $50,000 extra, or if we could just double our income, everything would change. For those of us skilled or lucky enough to actually achieve this, time and time again, we are let down by how little our life actually changed, or how little our happiness actually improved. So this was a quick episode. Money doesn't buy happiness. End of story, right? Well, professors, psychologists, and others, just like the authors of our book, started to ask, just because money doesn't seem to buy happiness, does that mean it cannot? Put another way, maybe we're just doing it wrong and we don't know how to spend our money to maximize happiness. It's this question that our authors Elizabeth Dunn and Michael Norton set out to tackle. As we take this journey with Elizabeth and Michael, try to think through times in your own life where their findings could overlap with your experiences. And be sure to stick around to the end where we share some specific ideas that you can put to work and spend happier for yourself, as they say. We will cover 5 separate principles to help you create more happiness with your money. So if you're the type who likes to jot things down and create a list, grab your pen and paper. Otherwise, feel free to listen along, and you can always print off the cheat sheet that I've created for you in the show notes. Principle number 1. Buy experiences. Research links buying experiences to more happiness than buying things. This seems to hold true whether it's a major purchase or if you're only spending a few dollars. This one can be a little tricky because it's easy for us to imagine ourselves enjoying a tangible object that we can hold in our hands. Sometimes experiences are a bit tougher to imagine, especially if it's a new experience and you don't know what to expect. So it's tougher to visualize. It's because of this that in our mind, we anticipate greater happiness from the thing than we do the experience. But once again, reality doesn't line up with this. This could be as simple as spending a few dollars on a dessert to enjoy, or as extreme as a 3-week trip overseas in lieu of buying that new car you've had your eye on. You could think of an endless list of experiences, but outside of eating a dessert and taking a grand vacation, a few others could include going to the movies, the experience your gym membership provides, or attending any type of event, like a trip to the museum, an art festival, seeing a comedian, a sports event, and so on. Part of what makes experiences even more enjoyable is that we often include others, so the social connection is very important. Our authors cover this in more detail, so we will circle back to this before we're done. While it probably makes sense to everyone that sharing experiences with others can make them more enjoyable, you might be surprised to hear that sacrificing short-term enjoyment can still lead to more long-term happiness, especially when creating a memory or doing something unique. I'll say that again, as personally, this didn't sink in the first time I read it. Sacrificing short-term enjoyment can still lead to more long-term happiness. One example that our authors shared involves an ice hotel in Sweden, which is located about 125 miles north of the Arctic Circle. This is just as it sounds. Visitors sleep on a bed made of ice with temperatures of roughly 25 degrees Fahrenheit. The actual experience in the moment may not be particularly enjoyable, but visitors find that the memories they create lead to long-term happiness. I imagine that much of this happiness is found in the countless times these visitors retell their story and share their experience with others. The same could be said about camping in a tent, visiting an overcrowded theme park, or running a marathon. We often remember these activities with rosier glasses than our actual experience in the moment. So why do experiences, even those that are unpleasant in the short term, give us so much more joy than spending our money on things? Well, one reason researchers have found is that it's easier for us to compare things with other people's things. This can lead to buyer's remorse, and we start to question our purchase. You can almost do a line item comparison for many things. Think of the cell phone you hold now versus the newest model in the store. You can compare square feet in a home, features and upgrades between one vehicle and another. On the other hand, it's hard to do a side-by-side comparison of experiences. As our researchers explained, choosing a dessert by comparing the taste and texture of an apple tart to that of an orange sorbet is considerably more difficult. One must literally compare apples to oranges. Mark Twain gives us more reason to take advantage of experiences. He said, 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the ones you did do. This is a great marketing strategy, but as it turns out, there's a lot of truth to this statement. Looking back on their past decisions about whether to purchase experiences, 83% of people sided with Mark Twain, reporting their biggest single regret was one of inaction, of passing up the chance to buy an experience when the opportunity came along. The opposite was true for material goods. Most people's biggest regret was buying something that they wish they hadn't. So, we are relatively happy with things until we find out there are better things available. On the flip side, this tendency doesn't seem to be the case with experiences. Essentially, we don't go on a trip or attend an event and then regret the experience and wish we had done something different. I'm just speculating, but maybe this is because we know we can always go on another trip or attend a different event. There are more around the corner that we can experience. Once we buy something and a newer, shinier one comes around, we've already spent the money and have the thing, and it's not so easy to upgrade or replace things without spending a lot more money. Our authors go into much more detail about why buying experiences ultimately wins versus buying things, and you can always research this more on your own if you'd like. But for the purpose of this podcast, the main lesson I wanted to make crystal clear was simply the point that buying experiences leads to more happiness. To get the most bang for your buck with experiences, our authors give us the following 4 tips. First, find experiences that bring you together with other people, fostering a sense of social connection. Second, find experiences that make for a memorable story that you'll enjoy retelling for years to come. Third, find experiences that are tightly linked to your sense of who you are or what you want to be. And fourth, find experiences that provide a unique opportunity, eluding easy comparison with other available options. If you can find experiences that hit all 4, you are well on your way to happier spending. So that's the first of our 5 principles to buy experiences. Let's move on to the next one. Principle number 2, make it a treat. This chapter could be summarized by saying, don't eat chocolate every day. The reality of the human experience in general is that the more we're exposed to something, the more its impact diminishes. Think of the 1964 classic children's book, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Maybe you know it better as the movie, but either way, children everywhere were clamoring for a precious golden ticket hidden inside just 5 candy bars, as this meant they would have the opportunity to tour the popular chocolate factory that had never before opened its doors to outsiders. The wealthy families bought their children an endless amount of candy bars, and the kids would nearly inhale the chocolate, they would eat it so fast, discarding the wrapper as soon as they realized it was not a winning bar. On the other hand, Charlie, the hero of the story, saved up enough money to buy just 1 candy bar. He slowly peeled back just the tiniest bit of the wrapper and would savor just a nibble of chocolate before wrapping it back up for a similar experience the next day. Charlie was an expert at savoring the experience and making it the ultimate treat. Furthermore, when we know something won't last forever, we're more likely to savor it. This may give us some insight as to why people often don't visit landmarks in their own hometown. Give people a deadline to enjoy something. They will often wish they had more time, like an expiration date on a gift card, but in reality, they are more likely to enjoy it quicker. And in the case of gift certificates, enjoy them at all. The longer the expiration date to use a gift, the more likely it is to go unused. Even if we try to savor it, the reality is when we buy something new, particularly items or things, the immediate joy and excitement we get right away fades pretty quickly over the next few days, weeks, and months. The problem is we aren't very good at applying this knowledge when contemplating purchases in the first place. Think of anything you've bought within the last year or so. It might be hard to remember many things at all, which should tell us something in itself. If you can think of something, do you remember how you felt when you first made the purchase? What about the feelings that same product or thing gives you now? If you're anything like the participants who our researchers studied, you probably feel that 90% of the excitement is now gone, even when there was much thrill and anticipation the day you made the purchase. While this is natural and to be expected to some extent, our brains do a poor job of connecting our future happiness with the immediate happiness we have in that moment. As we close up our second principle, just remember, if you enjoy fresh cut flowers in the house, take a break for a while. Reintroduce them later and you will enjoy this treat even more. Or if your guilty pleasure is chocolate, make it a rare occurrence and it will truly feel like a treat. Principle number 3, buy time. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine what your life would look like if you had $100 million sitting in your bank account. What would life look like? What would you spend your time doing? Opening our eyes and reflecting on this quick experiment, we probably all visualized a life much more glamorous than the one we're currently living. But what research has shown is that people with more money do not spend their time in more enjoyable ways on a day-to-day basis. Why is this? For starters, those with more wealth have more to lose, which may mean more to worry about. Perhaps they have more responsibilities to manage, and with it, more stress. And like we just learned from our last principle, the shininess of new things wears off quickly. If you have so much money that you never make it a treat, then the treats don't seem so special any longer. Looking back to a previous episode titled, Where Are You Still Using Single Ply? Hopefully you created a list where you can use your money not just for more good, but also less bad, such as cleaning or doing chores that you don't enjoy. It's no coincidence that Tim Ferriss took this idea of outsourcing to the extreme in his best-selling book, The 4-Hour Workweek. Tim takes readers through an exercise where instead of asking if something can be outsourced, they creatively figure out how to outsource anything. Of course, it's not practical to outsource the evening dinner with your spouse, but the very thought process of outsourcing everything opens our minds to new ideas. However, our authors Elizabeth and Michael offer a word of caution. Figuring out how to eliminate or reduce time doing things we hate can be great, but time-saving products that only increase our efficiency may backfire. Ironically, when it comes to products that help us save time, research suggests that these make us feel like we actually have less time. The very time-saving nature of these products can lead to a feeling of time scarcity and impatience. Just as time-saving products can make us feel as if we have less time, one of the best ways to feel as if we have more time is to donate ours. Studies show that donating even as little as 15 minutes of our time help us feel that we have more of it. I'll repeat that once because you might think you misheard me. Even for the person who is stressed and doesn't have a free moment in the day, the best way for them to feel like they have more time is to donate some of their own. How about exercising? People often say they don't have time for it, but research shows that within reason, the more we exercise, the happier we get. To take this a step further, going for a 15-minute walk outdoors makes people feel happier and more relaxed than getting similar exercise indoors. So, we often fail to appreciate the benefit of a short exercise. It doesn't have to be a long, grueling session. And also, we fail to see the added value of heading outdoors. So if we want to follow the research, get out of the house or even out of the gym to enjoy nature more often. This is something to think about if you plan to get a pet. Yes, a goldfish may only require 10 minutes of attention each day, allowing you to keep your time open for other things, but the needy dog who requires walks and attention will help you exercise and get outside more often. I'm probably a little biased having 3 little dogs myself, but as I told my wife, once we had one, it didn't matter if we had 1 or 3, I was going on the same amount of walks. Let's wrap up our third principle of buying time with a quick conversation on 3 key activities where our authors suggest we could do a better job of spending our time: commuting, watching TV, and socializing with friends and family. First, commuting. On average, Americans spend more than 2 weeks per year commuting. Now, this figure is pre-COVID, so it will be interesting to compare how this number has changed, but also if it's opened our eyes to commuting in general, as many of us have now experienced life with and without the daily drive. If you do still have a daily trip to work, you may think that having a nicer car would help make it more enjoyable. It may do so temporarily, but over time, the person sitting in traffic in a BMW is still just as frustrated as the person in a beat-up Ford on its last leg. But not all travel is created equal. If you're somewhere where you can take the train to work, passengers found this much more enjoyable even when the commute was longer. Perhaps the self-driving car will become the future version of the train, but I'm not sure everyone is quite ready to jump on board yet. Nevertheless, for the time being, the daily commute ranks toward the top of detractors of our happiness. If we are able to buy time by reducing or eliminating the commute, researchers show this is likely money well spent. This could mean if you are deciding between 2 houses, you go with the one with a shorter commute. Or it could mean taking a pay cut to be able to work from home every once in a while. Let's move on to the second activity that our authors found our time could be better spent: watching TV. To take this a step further, you could also add time spent looking at your phone, your computer, or just screen time in general. While commuting takes up about 2 weeks per year on average, watching TV takes up close to 2 months per year. Depending on what you watch, TV can be a great resource for learning or simply relaxing, but it's also designed to be addictive. Whether it's sensationalized news stories, shows that leave you on a cliffhanger, or programs like Netflix, Hulu, and others that automatically start playing the next episode each time one ends, they're all designed to keep you coming back or never leaving in the first place. This is another example of our actions not aligning with what makes us happiest. As research shows, we get less joy from watching TV than other activities, particularly activities spent with friends or in some sort of physical exercise. But we still spend a disproportionate amount of our time watching television. So if you are going to watch TV, make it social by watching with friends and predetermine how much you will watch. This way you don't fall into the trap of your TV deciding how long you stay glued to the screen. Let's move on to our third activity where our authors believe time can be better spent: socializing. Time spent socializing with friends and family is one of the strongest indicators of happiness and well-being. So while our first 2 activities of commuting and watching TV should be reduced, Socializing is one our authors say we could all use more of. But what can become a bit of a trap is the more time we spend commuting and watching TV, and the more money we spend on things, the less time and money we have left over to spend socializing with friends and family. One helpful frame of mind is to think in terms of time instead of money. By consistently asking yourself how a particular purchase will affect your time, your dominant mindset should shift, pushing you toward happier choices. I started off by telling you that we would be covering 5 separate principles to help you create more happiness with your money. So far, we've covered the first 3. For a quick recap, the first was to spend your money on experiences instead of things. The second was to make it a treat. For example, if one of your experiences happens to be a hot cup of cappuccino from Starbucks, go once a week or even once or twice a month instead of every day. Our third principle was to buy time. This might mean cutting down on your commute, hiring a maid service each month if you hate cleaning, and being conscious of your screen time watching TV, and instead replace this with time spent with friends and family. We are going to hit pause here and circle back next episode to finish off with the last 2 principles. We will also do our best to figure out how we can integrate all 5 principles together for actionable takeaways that you can use in your own life. And finally, we will close out our next episode with a bit of a challenge for anyone who would like to participate. This is something I'm really excited about, as the goal of this challenge is to take what we've learned from our authors Elizabeth Dunn and Michael Norton and put them into practice with the accountability of our group. As always, please connect with me through my email in the show notes if you have ideas or questions that you would like to see covered in the show. Find past episodes at healthywealthywiseretirement.com, and we will finish this conversation in 2 weeks.
Thank you so much for listening and supporting this podcast. If you've enjoyed listening, we would love if you took a quick moment to leave an honest review. Of course, we're shooting for 5 stars, but if you have suggestions to improve the show, we would love to hear from you too. Just click on the podcast name, Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise Retirement Podcast, and scroll down to ratings and review. Thanks again for your support, as this helps us reach a wider audience and help even more retirees just like you. This podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only and is not intended as a specific tax, legal, or investment advice. Lauren Sherman is a certified financial planner and co-owner of Integrity Wealth Management, an investment advisor serving retirees in search of their own healthy, wealthy, and wise retirement lifestyle.